Okay, barristers, listening to you, Barrister Mbesia, you seem to have brought some form of balance in this discussion, which I think it's very enriching. And the world is now understanding that Ambazonia is a necessary force to reckon with, especially with the way we process global politics and happenings of the world. Barrister Ghana, I'm coming again to you. Now, to focus a little bit on how Ambazonia can learn from this, because I would call this a diplomatic achievement, though Barrister Mbesia believes that it is as a result of the emergent situations. Some would think that it is a major achievement. How can Ambazonia profit from this whole thing to make progress in our diplomacy?
Yeah, comrade, before I answer the specific question that you asked, I just want to again differ from Barrister Mbesa a little bit. Barrister Mbesa presents a scenario of Israel as one that has never made an attempt to achieve peace. Barrister Mbesa also presents the situation of the United States as a broker or a stakeholder that has been absolutely and totally duplicitous in terms of its attempts to broker peace, which is not totally true, and I'll tell you why. In 1991, after the first Gulf War, uh, Bush won met with the Arabs and they agreed to push Israel towards brokering a peace with the Palestinians. And after that first Gulf War, the prime minister of Israel at that time was Yitzhak Shami. And Bush one forced Yitzhak Shami, kicking and screaming, to go negotiate with the Palestinians in what was eventually called the Oslo Accords. And they brokered peace within the Oslo Accords. And again, Barrister Mbesa was very right that they brought them to Camp David. Yasser Arafat was there, Yitzhak Shami was there, and later Ehud Barak was there to broker peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Why did the Oslo Accords fail? Why did they not take hold? And Barrister Mbesa is missing a key piece of this puzzle. It's not whether you like Iran or not. There were two factions at that time. The governing faction of the Palestinians was the PLO under Yasser Arafat. And that was the leading party that was negotiating peace in the Oslo Accords. But when it came time for Yasser Arafat to sign and agree to the two-state solution as prescribed by the Oslo Accord, he backed up. He walked away from it. Why did Arafat walk away from it? Because Arafat was afraid of Hamas. Arafat was afraid of the Islamic Jihad, which is what has morphed into Hamas here. And that's because the PLO wants a two-state solution that leads to coexistence with the state of Israel. But Hamas, aligned with Iran, is not about a two-state solution. It is about the total destruction of the state of Israel. So don't be too easy to let Palestinians off the hook. And you cannot say that Israel is a nation that is not inclined for peace. I wouldn't agree with that, and the facts bear witness to that. Because after the last war that they fought, where Israel captured the whole Sinai to make peace with Egypt, between Israel and Egypt, then under Anwar Sadat, Israel gave up the whole Sinai. Israel gave up all the land it captured from the Egyptians. Israel has given up all the land it captured from Jordan during that last war for peace. And that peace has lasted a long. In fact, the Egyptians themselves, or the Arabs themselves, or the Muslims, assassinated Anwar Sadat principally because he made peace with Israel. So to portray Israel as this Zionist movement that is absolutely not inclined to make peace is not true. Now, there are elements within Israel, the far right, represented by some current ministers in Netanyahu's coalition, who have this illusion about a greater Israel, thinking that they can take out all the Palestinians. And that is wrong. Again, he talked about the settlement, the increasing building of settlements by Israel on Palestinian lands is totally wrong and does not serve the interest for peace. But in terms of Israel having had honest brokers who wanted to make peace with the Palestinians, they have. And don't forget that though Israel is now in Gaza and has also seized the Philadelphia corridor, which is the corridor between that leads from Gaza into Egypt. Israel occupied that, or I mean, right up to 2005. And who was the Israeli leader who decided to pull out of Gaza and who decided to pull out of the Philadelphia corridor to give chance for peace? Who was that Israeli leader? General Sharon was the one. And General Sharon campaigned in 2001 to become the prime minister of Israel under the slogan that he was never going to pull out of Gaza and that he was never going to pull out of the Philadelphia corridor. When he pulled out of Gaza, what did Hamas do? Hamas immediately overthrew, well, they won legislative elections in the Gaza Strip. Then they overthrew the PLO in Gaza because they never won the executive authority in Gaza. Hamas only won the legislative elections there. Hamas did not just overthrow the PLO, but they killed all the Palestinian leaders in Gaza, pushing some of them from rooftops to their death. And all the aid that came into Gaza, what did Hamas do? Did Hamas use that aid to make the lives of the Palestinians better? No. They used all of that money to dig tunnels, again positioning themselves towards the absolute destruction of the state of Israel. So Hamas has to choose if it wants to make peace with Israel or if it wants to destroy Israel. They cannot have it both ways. Now, coming to Ambazonia, yes, Barrister Mbeza was right that there are similarities between the Palestinians and Ambazonians because these were all areas that were being governed by colonial masters. Again, Britain was a colonial master in that Palestine and Transjordan area. And it wasn't really the will of Britain to settle the Jewish diaspora in Palestine. In fact, Barrister Best, I think you are very knowledgeable enough to understand that Britain and the United Nations at that time, even contemplating giving part of the land close to Uganda to the Jewish diaspora. They contemplated settling in Israel there, and the Jews said no, they did not want any part of that. Now, being the fact that both Ambazonia and the Palestinians are all areas that had colonial authority over them and never got rightfully settled is true. But what the cases that are more close to ours, include the case of Zanzibar and the case of Namibia. Because again, as Barrister Anso rightfully said, during the Treaty of Versailles 1919 to 1922, they created two trust territories out of what was called the German Cameroon at that time. Same thing they did with Namibia, where they had Namibia as a trusteeship and they affixed it to be governed by South Africa. Same thing they did with Zanzibar. Zanzibar became a trusteeship territory and later united with Tanzania as a federation, which still remains a federation to this day. But he's right. We can extract examples in the fact that if we fight for our state, the fight belongs to us. And the world is governed by aggressive force. What Thibault Nach says sometimes that the international community does not exist, he is right to a certain extent because there is no collusive grouping that always makes unanimous decisions as the international community. You have to
Yeah.
fight for your rights as the South Sudanese did, as the Palestinians are doing, as the Namibians did, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have to lobby the powers that be who will eventually take your case towards a mechanism. President Sarko prefers a plebiscite or towards a mechanism where you would usher where your state is going to be ushered. In the case of Sudan or Saudi uh, Sudan, there it was through a referendum, and again that was through Bush too, who took the case there through Colin Powell and Richard uh, Danforth there, and eventually they had a referendum in the south that led to the state of that led to the state there. So yes, we can extract some examples from the Palestinians, but the example that we should also extract from the Palestinians is that one of the reasons that the Palestinian state does not exist right now was because it's not just words, is because of the division between the PLO and Hamas, or the offshoot of the Islamic Jihad there. If you come to Ambazonia, part of the reason why we cannot address the international community with one voice is because we have the ADF wanting to pursue its own strategy towards self-aggrandizement. We have Sako, who is a legitimate offshoot of Skakuf and the interim government under Ziziku that got kidnapped there. So Ambazonians are just as divided, almost as Hamas is divided with the PLO, which hinders them from having a united and negotiating front towards making the hard concessions. To have peace, sometimes you have to make the hard concession that take you through the negotiation table to statehood. So I don't know if that explanation helps, but